You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So normally this would be like a place where like Lisa would start telling us a story, and unfortunately she's not here tonight. So I get to be all like, so the story is Lisa's not here tonight, but we have an extra special guest. So we're really thrilled to have you join us, Erika Thorkelson.
Hi.
Yay,
Hello.
welcome.
I'm waving with my hands for radio. Yeah.
No, we love that. We always make as many visual jokes as possible for the podcasting community.
That's why I wear lipstick.
Me too. It's why I turn on my light while we're recording. Like I have to look my best for the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cheeks glowing.
That's all that
and
matters.
Such. It's all that
Honestly,
matters.
It's all that matters, and I'm just like I'm really thrilled that you're with us tonight. Also, like I'm really thrilled because you have an essay in a new book, and it's called Midlife, right?
Yeah. So it's an anthology that was sort of the brainchild of which was from some friends of mine from my university newspaper days, who are one lives in Edmonton, one lives here in Vancouver, Sarah Chan and Jen Pabolano. And they came together and decided that we were going to create an anthology, all of us who had been a part of the university newspaper like 20 years ago. And they decided that the theme was going to be midlife. So the book is called Midlife. And you can get it, you can actually order a copy at midlifebook.ca. It has a beautiful cover by another former colleague of mine, Raymond Biesinger. But what it is it's a series of essays about being in midlife, which required all of us to realize that we were like in midlife.
You're like, dude, I'm 40. And
I had
this
no
is
idea.
Like
until they were like, did you know we were in midlife? I was like, I didn't. I actually 41. That's midlife? Yeah, I guess it is.
I mean, we're lucky, I guess, that that's midlife considered still. You know, that's nice. That's great.
I think it's a range of time. So I actually wrote about watching Bridget Jones' Diary when I was 21, when it came out 20 years ago, and then watching it again during the pandemic.
Oh my God, that sounds basically like the premise of our podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we just have called our podcast Midlife?
Yeah, maybe. Revisiting all of our youth.
Yeah. What were some of your sort of big obviously we want people to buy the book and read your essay, but like walk us through some of your like realizations.
Well, I guess what I realized was that, it's weird because Bridget Jones was 30 something in that movie. I think 32. It's like a plot point. So I was 21 when I watched it the first time, and now I'm 41. So she was in the middle.
Yeah.
And I realized that the diary conceit, like the whole central diary thing, was a reflection of this kind of self-talk that we do to ourselves when we are feeling bad about ourselves, and that it's something that I've consciously tried to root out of myself over time and identify and get better at and not be so hard on myself. So it's interesting because I didn't realize that I was doing that when I was 21, but I realized that I'm doing it now. And so Bridget Jones is in the middle of those two periods of complete cluelessness and now being, I don't know, wise.
I mean, let's face it, we're not going to call Bridget Jones necessarily wise at any point. No. She's learning. She's always learning.
Yeah. She's a midpoint in learning.
And she fails up a lot.
She does. Oh boy, does she? Oh my gosh. It also made me realize, and this isn't in the essay because I just didn't have enough space, but it made me realize how much easier it was to have a career 20 years ago. No, like a lot of stuff that happens to her isn't very realistic, but holy Dinah, like she gets fired from publishing, so she goes into television.
Yeah. Just a straight up walk in. As long as you're cool with being sexually harassed, you can have a job. And
the doors open.
And I mean, on a certain level, isn't that what every job was like in 2001?
Oh,
as long as you're cool with being sexually harassed, you can work here. It
feels realistic.
It does.
Didn't we all have our Daniel Cleaver at some point, like some charming douchebag that just like, no, just me? Definitely was susceptible.
Deafening silence. I mean, I wish I had someone as charming, honestly, as Hugh Grant's. I'll take a charming douchebag over just like, would he become a future serial killer? Maybe. Like, I would over some of the men I knew. I would take Hugh Grant, I guess. But I understand your point.
Let's not give him that much credit. The person that I'm thinking of in my head right now. But he was like, to me at 21, he was charming, and I had very low standards. So, yeah.
I understand. That's actually kind of like the great thing about Bridget Jones is that even though she has a lot of self-esteem issues, I wouldn't say that she has super low standards necessarily. Yeah. Like she has friends who love her, and maybe they're a little, mean sometimes and tease her and stuff, but they really do love her.
Oh yeah.
And yes, some of the men she interacts with, I would not say none of them lead with kindness, but I don't know that she would. I don't know that she would be sort of like in any kind of place to lead with kindness herself either. Like she has to sort of work into that a little bit and like sort of, I mean, not to mention like the parents.
Oh yeah.
I really love how much space the parents' marriage interruption takes up, like in the story of Bridget Jones. I feel like we don't talk about that enough at all because like
they're great. That's a great plot line where like the man that her mom is going off with starts to turn orange over time, and they're doing a television. It's brilliant. Yeah,
it's so genius.
It is a well-constructed movie, and Bridget Jones is a great character. And when I saw it the first time, I felt a certain kinship with her, with the ways she was just trying to figure out her life and the ways she was mean to herself. And then in the end, the way that her conclusion is so much about self-acceptance and about being loved for who she is by people
just as
who
you
will,
are.
I know. I literally cried the first time I saw it. I think, like in a movie theater. That's I talk about that in the essay too. But there's something really beautiful about that, and it's still very touching. Yeah,
I think so too. I mean, grappling with midlife is. I feel like just grappling with mortality has been where we're all at for the last year and a half, like minimum at least. If it hasn't been something that like you sort of continue to that teases at your life all the time in perpetuity, which I'm always thinking about mortality, so that's like not necessarily a new state for me, but like really thinking about it on a global scale is a new state for me. So yeah, this has been a very difficult 14 months to sort of just like really sit here and think about it, but like midlife is AG, what about you? Like, have you had like the midlife grappling yet?
You would have. I guess I must have. I don't know. Maybe it's just a constant state of mind for me. I don't know. It's hard to say.
I mean, I think there are different ways of dealing with time, and that, like, to bring it back to the book, there are 27 different authors, and everyone has a different sort of journey and a different experience of midlife. So there's one really beautiful essay about a fellow who went on to have a career in journalism after being a student newspaper writer, and eventually realized that wasn't gonna, like, he just couldn't pay the bills that way, and now he's a builder, and he builds houses, and that was his, like, part of his midlife journey, and that, you know, you get to a point where you make choices, and I think part of what's happened in the last year is, for me anyways, that, like, all this distance from your life, you really end up sort of sitting back and thinking about all the choices you've made, good or bad, and how they've brought you to where you are in this moment. And gosh, this is heavy. Welcome to Existential Pop This.
Well, I was sorry, go ahead, AG.
Well, I was just gonna say, I also remember having like a quarter life crisis when you're in your early 20s, and that was around the time I saw this movie that we're going to talk about tonight.
Great.
I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Andrea Gin.
I'm Erika Thorkelson.
And you're filling in for Lisa Christiansen. Yay! Welcome to Pop This. We are talking about Josie and the Pussycats. Happy 20th anniversary to this absolute gem of
specifically a film. the movie from 2001.
Yes.
Because there's like the cartoon.
Sure. But
or
I mean,
the band.
Now that you've seen this, like, doesn't it sort of take precedent over any other iteration of Josie and the Pussycats?
Oh, yeah.
Well, this movie reminded me that Juliana Hatfield and Tanya Donnelly covered the song in the mid-90s for some compilation soundtrack, and I thought it was the greatest song ever, the greatest cover ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was so excited when I read that, like, Letters from Cleo is doing the voice, like, is doing Josie's voice through the whole thing. Like, and of course it makes so much sense that, like, Adam Schlesinger and Babyface were involved in, like, the music and production and writing, and, like, oh, R.I.P. Adam, but, like, what a genius. Like, just such good work throughout his life.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes, please.
So this is a musical comedy film.
Uh-huh.
And we're doing like a month or 2 months of musicals.
Uh-huh.
Last week's Sister Act we discovered it's not really a musical. Is that right?
Well, it's a musical comedy Christian film, you said, I believe.
But is Josie and the Pussycats a musical? Like, I guess my question is, what is a musical versus what is a musical film?
Okay, so this is what I brought up last week when Carlos was like, these are not musicals that you've got on the docket. And he was arguing with me. And I understand. Yes, they are not traditional musicals. However, a lot of, like, Sister Act is a Broadway musical now. Josie and the Pussycats, not yet a Broadway musical, but I think it could.
But what makes something a musical?
I think it's that, like, a lot of the plot and action comes through the songs. Like, that the songs are doing the work narratively. And the songs in Josie and the Pussycats, I would argue it's a musical movie because music is important, but the songs aren't really doing a lot of, like, a tremendous amount of narrative work.
You don't have, like, a Suddenly Seymour where they're singing a love song to each other.
Yeah. They're not, like, communicating emotional and complex sort of, like, things through song, typically.
Except for that one big set piece in the middle.
But even that is, like, more so just, like, its use is, like, montage to, like, sort of communicate. I mean, it does do some work, but it's mostly montage work, right? Like, I think with musicals, it's, like, the songs are doing actual narrative work that are sort of, like, germane to the plot. They're not extraneous.
But so you like totally stressed me out by saying I was going to have to watch 2 months of musicals. But then you kind of like slid all these like just musical films in, and I'm like watching them and I'm thinking like I'm actually enjoying these, and then realizing they're not actually considered musicals. But
I mean, look, I'm going to point out a couple things here. It's not like it's not like I in a vacuum programmed these 2 months. I put together a suggested list, sent it to you and Lisa, and you were both like, sure, looks good. And I'm just realizing now neither of you read the list. Like, not, like
I saw the word musicals and I stopped reading.
And you checked out and you agreed to it. You agreed to it.
I love this rock and roll podcast lifestyle you guys have going on here. Just whatever.
Yeah. We're just working out our dirty behind the scenes laundry in front of you, Erika.
I was watching it and I was just like, do I not know what a musical is, or does Andrea Warner not know what a musical is?
I know what a musical is, but I also think
what's happening.
But I think it's worthwhile to like sort of combine musicals and musical movies, because like I don't necessarily think like all musical movies are, you know, incredible, nor do I think all musicals are incredible. I like a combination of the two together, and I also wanted to fit in stuff that made sense thematically with like our Pop This sort of overarching thing, which is like we typically do movies that have you know, some super cool women either behind the story driving the action or in front of the camera driving the action, or like whatever. Like we typically sort of like put ourselves in that place. So it wasn't like when I was looking up, you know, straight up just musical adaptations, I didn't want to do something like Les Mis, because I was just like,
I love Les Mis.
I mean, I don't object to Les Mis either. I don't love it, but like I don't mind it. But I just didn't. I don't know. I would just like rather do Xanadu than Les Mis, you know. And
for sure.
And we've wanted to do Josie and the Pussycats for a long time. So when I was like, oh, well, this counts as like, this could be like a musical movie. And I guess in my head, I was shorthanding it and saying musicals. But what I really meant was musicals and musical movies.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
No problem. No problem. And you know what? I'm going to bet that we have this conversation every week until these 2 months are over. So can't wait. So yeah, it is the 20th anniversary. I'm just gonna read the background, and then AG, I'm gonna throw to you for a synopsis, and then we're gonna officially introduce Erika. So exciting. So Josie and the Pussycats is a 2001 musical comedy film, and it was directed and co-written by Harry Elfton and Deborah Kaplan, and it's, you know, loosely based on the Archie comic series and the cartoon of the same name. It was filmed entirely in Vancouver, and there are some great 2001 era Vancouver scenery moments happening. I love it so much. So we've got Rachel Lee Cook, Tara Reid, Rosario Dawson, Alan Cumming, Parker Posey. It is a slammin' cast, I'm going to say. I love it so much. Did not receive great reviews, pretty mixed, box office bomb, but it has enjoyed the success of a cult film later in its life.
I like how you talk about the film as like it's a human with a life.
It is a human with a life, and that was really cribbed from Wikipedia. So I take no credit for any of that assessment, but I stand by it.
So the synopsis, Josie, Melody, and Val are three small-town girl musicians determined to take their rock band out of their garage and straight to the top, while remaining true to their look, style, and sound. They get a record deal, which brings fame and fortune, but soon realize they are pawns of two people who want to control the youth of America. They must clear their names, even if it means losing fame and fortune. And that's from IMDb.
I just love how it's so specific. Girl musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Small town
musicians. Yeah. Erika Thorkelson is a freelance journalist and writer of fiction and creative nonfiction living in Vancouver, Canada. Her work has appeared in local and national publications, including The Walrus, Chatelaine, University Affairs, Maisonneuve, and Room Magazine, among others. She's been a regular contributor of arts and culture writing to the Vancouver Sun and Edmonton Journal, as well as a host and operator on the Storytelling Show on Vancouver Co-op Radio. Also, a returning guest, friend of the podcast.
Yay.
Erika, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be here to talk about this movie.
I mean, you didn't necessarily you weren't like, let's talk about this movie. Like, we just said, hey, which one do you want to talk about? And you were like, yeah, let's talk about this. Had you seen this film before?
I had. I have no idea when. I assume I saw it when it came out because it seems like the sort of thing I would have seen in the theaters. But I actually went back in the archives of the university newspaper. Because I was arts and entertainment editor at the time, and I thought, did I review this? Which is, who knows? And I did not. I got a guy to review it for some reason, and I want to go back in time and tell myself why would you do that? He panned it. He made all of the film reviewer mistakes about writing off girls making movies and girliness, and I want to go back and be like, I should have reviewed this. I should have been smarter about it.
I mean, that is this podcast.
Yeah, I can take it back now.
We should not have let men do things. No, I'm kidding. Totally kidding. Totally kidding. Just a joke. Just a joke. AG, you'd seen this before?
Yeah, I think I saw it when it came out, and rewatching it, I just really connected with that, this deep 90s cynicism of the movie, and kind of I remember thinking at the time, because I was well into my 20s when I saw the movie, and so I was older than the demographic it was from, but yet of around the age of the people who probably made and wrote the movie.
For sure, yeah.
And so I remember thinking it felt like it was made for my demographic, but it was a teen movie, and how it was ultimately probably gonna bomb because kids did not want to hear that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just it ended up not doing very well, and that felt very fitting for a Gen X 90s movie as well. Kind of being an unpopular movie, and yeah, and of course, because I'll watch anything with Parker Posey in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is a stunning performance from Parker Posey. Yeah. There is so much happening in her performance. As I mentioned, I had never seen this until a few days ago, and I was honestly so mad at my past self that I hadn't watched it. Because I can imagine what my mindset was in 2001. I was probably saw the trailers and was just ugh, this looks so stupid. And I was probably really just being kind of snobby and being this is not going to be feminist at all. And just really probably deep in my,
you were that kid I was talking about.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear that message.
No, I think what I honestly, I thought that I was beyond teen things.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was going to be entirely just a teen movie, that I was too grown up for that at 21 or 22, whatever time of year this came out. And that I wasn't going to be part of any kind of celebration of pop music in that sense of because I mean, I was, kind of one of those snobs that well, I mean, I've talked about this so much, but just I didn't really like boy bands or girl bands. I didn't like Shania Twain or Celine Dion. I didn't and all the things I didn't like were so much more about just feeding into this one type of feminism that was very, very specific and very exclusionary and very gatekeepery. Mm-hmm. And I think that I just would have seen the trailers for this and just been ugh.
I think it was
better than this.
I think it was sold weirdly. I think it was advertised in a confusing way because it felt. I think that it felt like a throwback to the Spice Girls movie at the time. I remember thinking, like, isn't this just the Spice Girls movie when the advertisements started coming out?
Yeah, well, they were talking about the marketing. I've read a lot about the film at this point, and the marketing, it was marketed to kids.
Yeah.
And, like, that's not the audience for this film at all at the time.
Yeah. And so you have this, like, girly kind of, like, aesthetic that just nobody knew how to sell at the time. And the only way that it was like how books written by women were always had romance novel covers, like books about like young women, because Josie and the Pussycats are adults, right? Like they're not teenagers. They seem to have graduated from high school.
I have no idea. I know that Josie can fix a car and lives in a house. That's all. Like I don't know anything about. I mean, the fact that she like.
But I think in the Archie comics, they're still teenagers.
Mm.
Yeah, I think in the comics, because they're all teenagers, right? Like no one, we don't see them.
Yeah, Josie goes to high school with all the like Archie and
yeah. But this one, they seem post high school.
They do,
I think.
Yeah,
because otherwise, like, how could they just leave? And they also have no parents.
Yeah,
and yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I love this movie so much now. Like, honestly, the fact that it kicks off with the, like, diabolical, like, assassination of boy band du jour.
Whose song is called Backdoor Lover.
Oh my
God. That opening scene, I was just, like, grinning from the first, and, like, singing. So good.
I did not stop smiling the entire film. I just was like, I had no idea how biting and insightful and awesome and interesting. But like that's like I do remember watching. I didn't watch all of it, but I do remember watching like a couple years of the show Popular. Do you remember that show? That like Ryan Murphy's like first show. It was like a dark high school.
I never saw that.
Okay, I do remember watching that in like 2002 or so, and it was really dark and like and I feel like just somehow like whatever, I guess the music wise of Josie and the Pussycats, somehow I just was not biting, even though also Biff Naked is part of this, like the music of this show, and I loved Biff Naked. I just like adored her so much. And she's like credited as one of like the musicians. Like I don't know where she plays or what she does, but
I think she sings backup vocals.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Amazing.
But yeah, anyway, I just Backdoor Lover is incredible.
Such a great song.
I think that's why like I was interested in seeing the movie, even though I was way too old for the demographic, is because like all these indie musicians were involved. In it, like That Dog and Letters to Cleo, and so it was like the idea of all these indie musicians kind of making a soundtrack for like a mainstream movie was like very fascinating to me.
Totally, no, it would be like, and I just feel like I was really closed off and missed the boat, and like that's again sad for my past self, but like happy for like me today. Seeing this for the first time at like 42 after being like writing about the music industry for like 15 years, 20 years maybe. What a gift.
What a gift. Yeah, I mean, I think like watching this now, I mean, I kind of like I realized what I didn't realize like from watching it the first time is that like I actually think like it's a plausible explanation for how the music industry works. I now accept it as that kind of is what happens.
This is just like prescient, and they let the movie get made, and they were like, because no one will ever believe it could go like this. But
yeah, exactly.
Hello,
It's just Alan Cummings and Parker Posey's, all the way down.
Mm-hmm. Do you have? I know I have a favorite performance in this film, but do either of you have a favorite performance in this film?
I love Rosario Dawson. I every time she's on screen, she's like this like sparkly being. I kind of wish she had been Josie. I think she would have benefited from a lot more screen time, but I love her in this movie. I love her in almost every movie or TV show. I'll watch Rosario Dawson read the phone book, to be honest.
Yeah, I love her too.
Yeah.
She's so good. And I think she's actually quite good in Rent, speaking of musicals.
There you go. Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, she's playing 15 years outside her age, but that's fine. It's totally fine. AG, what about you?
I love Parker Posey's performance. She just nailed it. But yeah, I was gonna say, the guy who played Alan, the sad boyfriend. Did you guys immediately think like Evan Dando when you saw him?
I don't know.
Evan
who that
Dando's
is.
too cute. Like, this Alan is not cute enough to. This guy actually reminded me a little bit of oh my god, who is the? He looked like a straight haired version of the dude who plays Dynamite. Oh my god, the movie where he's like voting for Paco and he does a dance at the end.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Napoleon Dynamite. He looked to me like a straight haired version of Napoleon Dynamite, and I was like, this Evan Dando is too cute, I believe, to play Alan M.
Alan M. He reminded me of Shaggy from Scooby Doo somehow.
Yeah,
There was
I could see that.
something in his outfit, maybe.
Did
But,
he
like,
have a
better
tiny soul
looking.
patch?
Ye-
Did he have a tiny soul patch? 'Cause
Maybe
I
he
just
just
I
had a
didn't
soul-
notice.
Did he have a soul patch vibe?
You're right. It was a soul patch vibe. You're right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. My honest to God, Tara Reid killed me in this film. There like line after line after line. I just kept laughing so hard, and I was just like, how did honestly, I know that I sound so stupid, but like, just how did she not get an Oscar nomination for her performance? It's so good. It's so good to be that like when she's in the shower and she's like singing "Clap Your Hands" and she keeps dropping the French fry
Oh my God.
sponge. When she talks about actually the first one that really killed me is she talks about meeting Alan Cumming's character. She's like, did you notice how he folds his napkin so many times? Like, he knows he doesn't have any friends. I laughed so hard. Like, it just like, I love that sort of trope of like the very seemingly empty-headed but hilariously observed character. I find that as a trope really fun to see how people play with it so much.
Well, and I think like her performance, to me, like she nailed it so well that like it made me think about how it was a version of the cartoon, and it like this was a comic book story, because she managed to make this character that was kind of cartoony at the same time, but was like a, she was just like 100% committed to this role and making this character. And yeah, it just, to me at the same time was believable as like, this is like a comic off the pages of like Archie comics.
It's interesting how it's how like self-consciously it references the comic book. Like what is the name of the actor who played the sister of the manager?
Missy Pyle.
Yeah, Missy Pyle. And at one point they're on a plane and he's like, I still don't get why you're here. And she says, it's because I'm in the comic.
Yeah.
Like that's the most
That's like classic 90s.
Yeah, it
classic.
is. Even though it was 2001, it's got so many classic 90s turns.
Oh, hardcore classic 90s. It observes a lot of like 90s just like attitudes and behaviors, and I think, and they talk about that a little bit. Like there's a couple different articles that I very much enjoyed, and one was like a legitimately great 7 things you don't know about Josie and the Pussycats piece from BuzzFeed. And I love that list journalism can be genuinely revealing, especially if you have an actual interview with the like co-writers, co-directors. But they talked about quote unquote We were coming out of an era with Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Sonic Youth bands that really encouraged dissent and individuality. It was like the music industry suddenly decided we need to course correct and feed everybody what we want them to buy and promote corporate culture and not be like, quote, down with corporations. It was kind of a reaction to that and what we saw happening. And I really do appreciate.
I really felt that comment.
I felt that.
Oh yeah,
I felt
that's
that
real.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was super real.
That took me back to 2001 and just feeling that way because, you know, as a person who had like lived through the 90s, it was like, or had my formative years in the 90s, it was like really shocking and upsetting to see like culture turn in a way that was like so commercial as a reaction to the 90s. And so, yeah, like this movie kind of really filled a hole for me at that time.
I feel like we should be like, smells like Teen Spirit, and you'll just be rushed away to a room somewhere.
But it's so smart though.
Yeah.
I'm really shocked by the number of critics who didn't get that this was skewering like corporate branding culture. Like the number of critics who were like calling them hypocrites for like making this film, that like we're just oh my god, where is it? One of the lines, the concept is so hypocritical. It's like Britney Spears calling Christina Aguilera underdressed and overexposed because they thought that the brands were all paying for that placement. And like they actually used all those brands and no one paid anything like for product placement, which is,
I think in today's world, in today's world, it's flabbergasting. But I think, you know, I can see why they would do that because it's, like they're trying to skewer corporations.
Yeah.
So why are they trying to take their money? And, you know, like they're not necessarily. I don't think they saw themselves as making a movie for kids. Like they were making, and they were making like a movie for adults. I think.
Yeah.
Completely. I was actually surprised the level at which MTV and its properties were willing to have themselves like sort of shown as bad people complicit in taking over like the youth, you know, like I was actually, because like I feel like nowadays, I mean, we say this a lot, but like the things that sort of people could make movies about in the 70s were very different than what people could make movies about in the early 2000s. And it's even shifted even more so, I think now is just like, can you imagine like TikTok being okay with being the bad guys vilified in a film about taking over youth culture? I just don't think so.
Corporate culture has gotten really insular and self-defensive, like really defensive. And I'm trying to imagine what a TikTok movie, like a self-reflexive TikTok movie would be. And it would just be a horror film about like young people trapped in a home together trying to be ever more TikTok-y.
But I think if Josie and the Pussycats was like made today, like how would they do it? Because the band would be like seeking corporate sponsorship and seeking branding, and everybody would consider it a good thing because they're just trying to make a living off their art. There's nothing wrong with getting a ton of sponsorship for it.
They would never be able to pay their rent otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this movie predated, you know, by basically 1 year, you know, Napster kind of like changing the music industry.
Oh, yeah.
In completely, at the time, you know, it seemed to really blindside music companies and labels and record companies and stuff. And like, so this movie, 2001, like Napster really didn't do its major flex until 2002 and 2003. And that was sort of like the end of a lot of boy bands as we know them, like the end of all kinds of like significant record deals as we know them. And it's completely, I think, rewritten that relationship in terms of like bands needing sponsorship and branding and all these other kinds of deals. Like it's and the pandemic, I can't even honestly imagine what the pandemic is going to end up creating as a sort of like landscape for musicians coming out of this.
It just occurred to me that if it were made now, Josie would marry Elon Musk. Which, anyway.
One of the things one of the other things that I thought was really kind of fun reading about was how much Parker Posey apparently didn't want to make the movie. And that she was just there for the paycheck. And the way that they talk about her is a little bit kind of shady. And I was intrigued by that because I mean, I think her performance is unhinged and great.
Mm-hmm.
But they like the co-writers and co-directors are a little bit like, they said, you know, they felt like she thought I'm selling out by doing this kids movie. She would quote unquote waver on set. She'd be like, "What are we doing?" And other times she'd be like, "This is fun. It's for kids."
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I'm sympathetic to that. I can see when you're given this role, like, and you're in this world, not fully appreciating what it's going to be like until after the fact.
I was kind of like her entrance at the party in that scene where she does a little dance.
It's down the stairs.
In the Chan Center? That's where that was, right? That was the lobby of the place where I convocated from my graduate degree. It's beautiful. She does and like that wild dress that she wears with all the butterflies sticking out of it. I love that. I would wear that. And
then when she like sort of loses her, or she gains her speech impediment back, right. Her and Alan are making a lot of very specific choices when they are unmasked for sort of like who they really are deep down. And it was really beautiful to see, like, especially to see sort of like the two main baddies just be unmasked for like vulnerable, like sad people. But then find like love together. Really beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, are they going to go to prison? Yes, probably.
I hope so. Deep down inside, the record industry is just run by a lot of broken, sad high school kids.
Isn't the world run by broken, sad high school kids?
Yes. I'm run by a broken, sad high school kid.
Yeah, like this is all this is.
This is what this is. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about all of the horrific reviews? So I'm going to read us a small selection. Love to spend some time in that 2001 era sexism. And these come courtesy of an incredible piece by Ann Cohen for Refinery 29 called Josie and the Pussycats Was Way Too Jerkin for Its Time, which is the perfect title ever. Anyways, so New York Times Elvis Mitchell wrote, quote, "Few people other than airline passengers should be submitted to such misery." Roger Ebert gave it half a star and wrote, "Josie and the Pussycats are not dumber than the Spice Girls, but they are as dumb as the Spice Girls, which is dumb enough." Peter Travers comes in. It was mean. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone comes in swinging hard with his very unimpressive hammer, calling it a harmless girly trifle, and then gone are the cat suits. Fetishists will have to settle for pussycat car phones, but I think they mean earphones. In the Anywhere USA town of Riverdale, songbird Josie, played by Rachel Lee Cook, pines chastely for Alan M., a lanky musician who doesn't even notice this kitty has titties.
Wow.
Oh no. Somebody
Now-
got really excited about that rhyme.
Peter Travers has written some truly terrible things in his time, and this is one of them.
Wow.
Just yikes on bikes. It's terrible.
I'm really glad they let women review films now.
I mean,
nice.
I'll say, like, it's not all, women don't always
But
No.
yeah,
come in
I mean,
better, but that is very specifically male gazy porno gross.
yeah, and it seems like for, like Roger Ebert and Elvis Mitchell, it's surprising that they kind of just took the movie at face value and didn't give it any credit for, like any of the messaging it had, what they were trying to do, at least with the anti-consumerist messages, or talking about, their commentary on the music industry or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's like really willfully ignorant to dismiss everything about this film because you think teenage girls are the target audience and the stars.
Mm.
It's so deliberate in its sexism and its ageism and its like cronyism but like, I mean, and this is like 20 years ago. Like these men shouldn't have been so stuffy yet at this point. They were getting excited about Kevin Smith films, but they couldn't see what was happening in this movie, which is like such a obvious and fervent critique of, a coming capitalist shift. I mean, if the 90s were that reaction to the 80s excess and all that gross stuff, and then 2000 is a reaction to the 90s sort of like resistance of it, I mean, they had all lived through witnessing these monumental culture shifts, and they should have been smart enough to watch this movie and seen what it was.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah, totally. I think it's interesting how much benefit of the doubt is given to something like Clerks, which, if you go back and watch it, is pretty silly. It has some charming moments, but it's like it is no smarter than. Is it? I mean, okay, I haven't watched it in a long time, so maybe I'm talking too much, but I don't think it's that much smarter than Josie and the Pussycats.
It's not.
No, it's just like it's just childish in a anyway, but in a way that they get.
Yeah, and it's interesting
yeah.
that Clerks was taken as a movie about teenagers but for adults, whereas Josie and the Pussycats is about teenagers but for kids, supposedly.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a kids movie at all.
No, but I think it is that sort of gendered lens that they're just like, oh, girls? That means it's completely beneath me.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that they do that all the time with so many other things. Like I don't know. I love to think about, okay, well, one, it passed the Bechdel test, which is great. We love that. And just to give like a bit of a last word to our good pal Rosario Dawson, who had the cast reunion last month, and this was via Vulture, and she talked about like the film's feminist lens, quote unquote. There was scene after scene after scene that was not about how men were in our lives. It wasn't about all these other things. It was about us and our dreams and our passions and our talents. And seeing these men being super supportive of these women, wanting to see them shine, watching them grow in front of you and being amazed by that. There are so many levels in that are really profound. And I think that's like, it is something that's really exciting because I'm trying to think of like other movies that I could have potentially seen at that time, which I know, since I didn't see this, but like a movie that was about like these young women want to make rock music.
And it's about female friendship, right? Which is like, especially back then until very recently, was generally seen as something toxic, right? Like people would really appreciate if female friendships had like a dark edge. But if it was like a genuinely sweet movie about female friendship, then that was for children. Whereas you could see something like Stand By Me, which is a movie about boys being friends, and that wins Oscars, right? So yeah.
Where's Tara Reid's Oscar, guys?
Yeah.
You should start that hashtag on Twitter and get it trending. I'm sure you'd have tons of fans of this movie supporting you.
I mean, I can dream. Yeah, anyway, for me, this movie pops big time. I love it so much.
Yeah, I'd say it pops.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree with that.
Yay! We did it. And AG, this was a musical movie that you enjoyed. It was not a musical.
Of the series.
Second, so 2 out of 3 so far you've enjoyed, but with the caveat that they are musical movies, not musicals.
Maybe you're going to be the person that takes this movie to Broadway.
God, can you imagine what that could look like? You just gave me chills. I would love to bring Josie and the Pussycats to Broadway. Like, oh my God, that would be incredible.
Prepare the low-slung jeans.
We love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. Erika, as our guest, our honored guest, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I watched a movie recently called Space Sweepers. I think it's on Netflix. It's a Korean space opera, sort of like not opera in that it's musical. It's not actually a musical. It's just like big and explodey, and it's about there's like a little girl in space and all these people are trying to get her and there's fighting and different ships smashing into each other. I just love that stuff. I didn't explain it very well, but I think if you enjoy big smashy space movies, it's a lot of fun. Although,
I mean, that's a ringing endorsement. Big smashy space movies. Like
with a small amount of child endangerment.
I mean, now I'm sold.
If you're into that, not everybody is, but if you're into that, yeah, I liked it a lot.
That sounds awesome. Thank you. AG, what about you?
So I'm currently watching this show called Good Girls on Netflix.
Yay! Yay! Yay!
It's really, like, it hooks you.
Yes.
And I think there's like four seasons.
As far as I've only watched up
or
to the
maybe
end
there's
of
3 seasons.
There's 3 seasons. I think a 4th one just aired. I don't know if they're going to get a 5th or not, but
But it's basically Christina Hendricks and Retta and Mae Whitman play suburban Michigan moms who are desperate for money, and so they rob a supermarket, and that's basically like the first storyline, and then it goes on from there.
Kicks off a real crime wave. So where are you at? Are you at in still season 1?
No, I'm in season 2, like sort of.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, it's really good. It's like I'm mid season 2.
Okay, I'm so excited for you. Yeah, I watched it last year when I started watching it last year when I was really sick before the pandemic happened, and then finally got to watch season 3 just I don't know, a few months ago whenever it came out on Netflix or whatever, and I love it.
It gets better and better as you're watching it.
I love all the actors involved. I haven't gotten a chance to sit down and watch it yet, but I feel like I should.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah,
they're great. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And it's everyone, all the characters are quite distinct from each other. And yeah, it's great. Yeah.
And very funny.
So it is very funny.
I've been laughing so much.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a dark laughter, but it's laughter.
Don't we need laughter? I feel like we really do. Yeah.
Yes. Fully agree. Mm-hmm. I'm going in a slightly different direction. I am going to recommend a documentary that I watched courtesy of Doxa Film Festival, which will be over by the time this comes out, but I believe that the documentary will end up on Crave because it is partially funded by Crave. They got a credit at the end of it, and it's called Fanny: The Right to Rock, and it is about this rock band in the early 60s and through to like the early 70s. All women. 3 of the 5 women are Filipina American. Several queer members, and the untold story of how they were really the first female rock band to be signed to a major record deal. And they were a big deal that kind of got erased from history. And so this documentary sort of attempts to, write them back into history. And they do a very good job. The women are incredibly compelling, interesting, wonderful musicians who have done actually.
They're such amazing musicians.
They're such amazing musicians, and they've done so much that like you don't know, like you're not familiar with the story, and like, and I mean,
you listen to the songs and you're like, these songs are amazing. Like, what happened?
Well, that's the thing. Like, they never got like a number 1 hit. There was like a bit of I guess like a flux in the band. I feel like the managers, there's definitely some shady management stuff happening there. Even though the managers are interviewed in the doc, and are like still talking about it, but like I feel like there's some shady stuff there. And it just reminds me so much, obviously, of like, Buffy St. Marie and like how she was erased a lot. And like, she sort of, in terms of like her getting sort of stuck, pigeonholed as a folk musician, when like she really was like a rock musician as well. And just like, man, just, there were just so many great, rock musicians. It didn't have to ever be the way it was.
But like Buffy, these women are still going strong today.
Yes.
Where are they from?
They are from, oh my gosh.
And it's called
somewhere in the States. It's called Fanny, The Right
Fanny.
to Rock.
I was asking because in Canada, Fanny means the backside, but in Ireland, Fanny means the front side.
Oh yeah, no. When they went to the UK, they were wholly embraced.
People, good. I love
people loved Fanny in the UK and Ireland. They were welcomed warmly.
As Fanny should be.
Yeah. But even just like just seeing the house that they had in the canyon, like in Los Angeles, how just the sort of community that they were part of, and the way people would come and like stay with them. Like Bonnie Raitt was there for a long time, and like, just like all of these different people. And Fanny is sort of like this like unspoken heartbeat of, a kind of sort of like weird communal musician environments.
Well, yeah, because like one of them just casually brings up like dating David Bowie for a while.
Wow.
Yeah, one of them was with David Bowie for like a year and a half, and he talked about how important Fanny's music was and stuff, and just like there's just like all kinds of sort of like little moments that they were part and parcel of, but never as fully in the spotlight as they deserved, Anyway, it's a great documentary. It's a great bit of history that is like super unfamiliar to many people. Certainly I knew very little about them before this documentary, and
you just get to watch,
it's
like,
a game changer.
And you get to watch footage of women in their 60s and 70s, like just kicking ass on drums and guitar.
Oh, that's like, so good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. When they have the double drum together,
I know.
It's so good. I love it.
I'm going to go watch this.
Go watch it immediately.
On Doxa immediately.
Yeah. It's great. It's really great.
That's so good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Erika, for joining us. Do
you
want to tell people again where to get the book?
midlifebook.ca.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it was really lovely to have you. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. You
to
can
the
hang out with
midlife
us
to the midlife podcast.
To the midlife podcast. Stolen. Yep. You can hang out with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You could email us at popthiscollective@gmail.com. You could, rate and review us 5 stars. And also, Lisa's not here, so I will say thank you so much to our wonderful producer and co-host, Andrea Gin, for all of the double work that you are doing in this pandemic remote recording vibe that we've got. You're a real champion.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I was just laughing. I was just laughing because I had a call back to when Erika said soul patch vibe earlier.
That'll be my new podcast.
Soul Patch Vibe. That's a great podcast. I think that's a really good idea because everyone knows what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a Hootie and the Blowfish thing. Or maybe so just people who listen to Hootie and the Blowfish.
So many soul patches. That's our next podcast. So many soul patches. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. This has been great, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.